Hey, what's up? This is Alex with Gray Area. In the spotlight, you'll hear from Luke Andy. The Baltimore born LA based artist has been tearing up the scene with releases on Dirty Bird, In Rotation, Medium Rare, and Space Yacht. We'll talk about how a medical issue that kept him out of the Marines ended up being the thing that pushed him closer to a career in music. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more interviews just like this.
So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me today.
Of course.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, I've been following your music for like the last I want to say like 2.5 years.
Super sick, man. Thank you.
So yeah, so it's exciting to get a chance to talk to you.
Oh,
Um,
happy to be here, brother.
awesome. So the first thing I always like asking people, because I love to get like a background on like where people came from musically. I want to find out what's your earliest musical memory.
My earliest musical memory is probably my brother playing the clarinet. That was like his go-to instrument. That was his baby. And he was
Yeah,
always very musically inclined. And for me, I didn't have the patience. I 100% could have learned, but I was more outside. I was the outside kid. He was
okay,
the reader and the musical nerd. So I got a lot of my inspiration actually from him. And like growing up and listening to the music that he would play, and also my dad, he would play like Luther Vandross, all this stuff. So Sade, a lot of old soul influence that I try to incorporate with my everything I'm doing is in the box. So
right.
I don't necessarily play an instrument, but I definitely know it sounds good. And it's a lot like cooking. You can
Yeah,
put a lot of different stuff and create this beautiful concoction. I feel like that's what happens every now and then when I produce something. So, or at least that's what I'm going for. Um, but yeah, that's probably my earliest musical memory. And from there, it was just sculpting my ears and what I liked from different albums and songs that eventually my brother would stream in the car when he would take me to high school. It was like a
right.
lot of this shaping my ear to what I'm influenced in making today. So
It's interesting you said you didn't have the patience to like learn an instrument, because I mean, I come from a really musical background. I learned how to sing really early on, and
thanks.
like that whole idea of like practicing and practicing all the time, that does take a lot of patience. But I found when I started producing, like the learning curve is even steeper than like picking up an instrument or like learning how to sing or doing something like that, because you're like not just dealing with like learning how to understand music, but you're dealing with technology at the same time.
It's a
what
lot. Yeah.
yeah what was so different about production that you decided that you wanted to get the patience to
I
do that?
I think what it was the teacher, right?
Mm,
So I'm not coming at Miss Twig or anything from third grade, but I swear I wasn't really in it. I wasn't in it. And
yeah,
what I wanted to do was percussion, and there's only two percussion slots. And I guess people with more of a background got that slot, but I don't know. If it wasn't percussion, then I really didn't want to play, and so my mom
nice.
made me do violin, and then that was a fail. So then I tried trombone. I really didn't apply myself to either of those instruments, but
Right.
um, it's it really what it was the fact that I was shown GarageBand from a friend,
Oh,
and we played with it a little bit in high school,
yeah.
but I kind of had a GarageBand knowledge of how the software worked.
Right.
So when I decided to take the leap and try production, I went into Logic, and Logic was super similar to GarageBand.
Yeah, they're set
Um,
up the same.
the setup pretty similar. It's just like
Yeah.
a garage band on steroids. And
Right.
so it was pretty easy for me to pick it up and just start making stuff. Now I wasn't doing anything correctly, and there really is no rules, but there is ways to make shit sound right.
Right.
And I wasn't doing any of that, but at least I was getting familiar with the software, and which is the DAW, digital audio workspace, which
Right.
I'm sure everyone here knows. And it's like getting familiar with that DAW was the first learning curve, but it was so much more fun for me because I was the teacher. I was feeling that inspiration by what YouTube University, whatever I was looking up that day.
Yeah.
It wasn't like someone like a third grade teacher being like, okay, well, this is the boring sheet of music that you're gonna have to learn and play. Now
Right.
go play it or go practice. It was more so I'm kind of learning bits and pieces of mixing, mastering, why this bass line works here, side chaining, all this stuff compared to, you know, I don't even remember what music class was like in third grade, but I just don't remember it being fun. So I don't know. I think partially it was the teacher, and also the other part was when I started wanting to produce music,
Yeah.
it was because I went to my first music festival. And so that was really what pushed me. I got to see that live and see what that hard work could pay off and look like in the end. So I think that was a big driver of me wanting to apply myself and, put in that hard work in that time. I think that was the difference. Maybe if Miss Twig took me to see some rock band, I would have been down to, learn something else. But I don't know. There just wasn't that fascination when I was in third grade towards when I went to my first music festival.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's something really visceral that happens when you see something on stage.
Yes.
And I like my earliest musical memories of watching my brother sing on stage. So I think that's what got me into it so early.
Very
And
nice.
then like going to like raves in the late 90s got me into dance music and wanting to DJ and wanting to produce and wanting to do all that. So
Very
I feel
nice.
like there's like something really like special about watching it happen live and already having like that inclination to create within you.
Yes.
It's like that sparks it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it's an even extra additional step is when you get to, hear the music that you made out live.
Yeah.
And the extra cherry on top being the reaction that you get from it, whether good or bad. It's a beautiful takeaway to be able to play or have the option to play your music in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
It's a rare moment to be able to control people's emotions from something that you made, in your basement, in your room, etc. I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah.
And I think the people that don't get enough credit are the engineers and the developers that made these softwares for these DAWs, for these
yes.
VSTs, all of these things have allowed my dumb ass to be able to produce, so it's like that's the real fascination for me, is these people that actually created the softwares. That's another level. And so just to have that capability to make whatever I come up with. Now there's multiple facets. You also have like sound design too.
Yeah.
So it's like when you can add sound design to these like weird creative ideas you have. And also if you play an instrument, it does help a lot, having a music theory background and just being able to play a riff off the bat. All of those can help, create that beautiful entree that you're going to serve, and that's the beauty of it for me. So
I love that you said that you related it to like cooking, like you're serving something to your audience.
You got to. And if it sucks, I'll let you know.
I feel that. I kind of want to touch on something you said. You talked about like being able to play your own music in front of an audience. And I want to relate it back to, I know that like Claude Vonstroke and Dirty Bird was a really early inspiration from you after Chami, like you stepped into the Dirty Bird world. And I kind of want to understand, like, how does it feel to like have followed him around as a fan?
Yeah,
like literally followed him around followed him on tour, and then to not just see him play your music, but to be part of the Dirty Bird Players crew and to go back to back with him in a fucking hotel room. Like that's an incredible journey to have made. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. Clarification though, I wish I went back to back with him in the hotel room, but it was just social proof. I was DJing and then I played that last song and then I passed it off to him so he could DJ. But the video does make it look like it was back to back. And, for me, it was definitely, I was going to just let everyone think whatever they wanted to think.
Hey, I mean, that's still an incredible moment, because it's not like you're passing it off to him like on stage at a festival or at a club, which is something that we all know, like as a DJ, that happens often. You open up for somebody and there's that change off that happens, there's the hand slap, but like being in a hotel room with
pretty crazy
with Claude Vonstroke to pass it off there, that's a big fucking deal, man. Let's not like downplay that.
For sure. I appreciate you. And it was definitely a big moment for me. I've never shaken so much in my entire life. Like it was weird to even be around him. like we were just at Splash House this weekend, and he walks into one of the rooms we were in. So it's just like it's really interesting when your idol walks into the room, and
Right.
that's a lot. It happens a lot, it's like you see Walker and Royce, you see, Green Velvet, you see all these guys that you just like been following for years, like you said, and,
Yeah.
and literally like looking up to them and imagining being like them. And then just to be, casually sitting in a room joking with your friends, and then he walks in. It's definitely interesting, and it's hard not to say some dumb shit too. Like all you really want to do is give them a hug, but for them, they're just like, what's happening,
Yeah, yeah.
But no, it's really interesting. I'm definitely blessed to be in this position. um I, I don't know, it feels kind of surreal, but yeah, that's you know I don't know. I don't know what's next. I'm just looking forward to it, and I'm gonna keep on rolling with this crew as long as I can. That's about it. And then
Yeah.
maybe one day I can make a song with Chami or something. Maybe the next step is Chami. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like sounds are changing too. Tech house is big like last year and the year before, but I think people want some more either minimal or worldly sound. So
Yeah.
everybody's like kind of changing their
I feel
production a little bit. I don't know.
I feel like it's splitting off in two different directions, because I
Me
feel
too.
like there's some people in tech house that are going deeper,
Yes.
that are getting more minimal,
Yes.
or going back to like basics and like getting into breakbeat. Like the fact that Vanessa's become the queen of breakbeat
Right.
in the last year is
Right.
mind-boggling, especially coming from somebody who's been so into breaks for so long. But then like there's also like a huge contingent of tech house people that are just going further into the experimental, like harder shit.
Yep.
And I kind of love to see that happen, because like, tech house is not going to be big, is
It's
not going to be as,
boring. Yeah,
it's just
it's
it's
boring for
corporate.
me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting repetitive. So yeah, let's see what else we can do. I was like, it, and there's always gonna be like, that Fisher, that John Summit, those big guys who are gonna come in and just like blow up the scene and make whatever they're dropping like, so, not mainstream, but definitely like leading the scene.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
there's always going to be, a group of people that don't want to play that just because that's what's in.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people that want to play underground stuff or want to play, something different. So that's why I like the Brazilian sound a lot, and that's
Mm.
why I think the French producers are still the best producers out there. So I don't know, trying to get these like worldly influences in my own production, that's kind of where I want to go. Like Dennis Cruz is a big one for me. I really love the shit that he's making. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. I also forget the question that we initially asked. So.
I think we just kind of went off on a tangent there, but
Yeah,
that's totally okay.
wormholes are acceptable over here.
Oh no, totally. Well, let's touch on that idea of having like worldly influences, because you're a BIPOC person, um, and there's a cross-cultural background that exists in there.
Yep.
How do you see yourself starting to incorporate some of your heritage into your music in a way, or do you see that happening?
It's definitely something I want to do.
Yeah.
My dad is African American, so he has like a Nigerian descent background, and then
Yeah.
my mother, she's half Korean and then half like a bunch of European whites. So she's a little happy. So then for me, it's like I'm just like this mutt, a walking mutt. But I definitely want to kind of, you know, exploit that Korean side. I don't know what instruments I could add in, but I'm sure there's a VST that I'm not unaware of right now that has a bunch of Korean styled instruments. But yeah, I definitely want to sample some more Korean stuff. And, I'm always for the African Latin drums.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think the hardest part for me is always finding like top lines or vocals, and if that's not the case, then finding a way to make the bass line like really stand out. But as far as those worldly influences, definitely something that I'm trying to work on currently. So
Cool. You touched on the idea of like finding good top lines and stuff. How do you find them? I know that you've kind of talked about like, and everyone talks about this, like
Mhm.
Splice is Splice is a great tool, but it's also like the scourge of dance music.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
like it's great. It's great to like find like I need a kick drum.
Yeah.
So let's go grab a kick drum, or I need a baseline sound, but not an entire idea, or a baseline rhythm, or a baseline idea, but I'm not going to use the whole thing. I feel like people don't exploit it the way it should be. So how are you making gold out of your music? And how are you finding top lines? How do you find stuff, vocal samples? Where are you sourcing stuff from?
I appreciate the very poetic way that you said that, but I'm over here making silver, maybe bronze. I don't know about gold. Yeah, honestly, I'm all for splice. I just always say avoid the splice vocals because everyone and their mothers have used it,
Yeah.
or will use it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe other people don't agree with me, but that's just something that I stand with. I just feel like everything that I found that's a good splice vocal, everyone else has used, or I've heard it from other people sampling it.
Right.
For me, I just see if you got to either be different or you're gonna be basic. And for me, it's like I got to do something to keep it interesting. So I'll do like poetic, like what is it called? Slam poetry, pastors speaking. I'll try to get covers of people singing like a big song that I like.
Right.
Anything that I can alter slightly, but it'll still sound good. That's kind of what I'm going to go for. And then I'll try to just chop it up using like simpler or looperator, throwing the vocal into some sort of sequencer so it can create something weird. That's kind of how I have bounced around that splice vocal vortex. I don't know what to call it. But it's just like people get stuck with that. I mean, there's a lot of songs I play that use the splice vocals too. It's just like they used it first, I feel like, so it's okay. I don't know. I feel like that's me being hypocritical now. Who knows?
It's okay.
I personally stay away from it.
It's a weird thing to talk about too, because I feel like everybody feels that way. It's like, yes, I don't want to use splice vocals, but also I will play a song because I have that same splice vocal in my library, but I know I can't use it because somebody else used it first. But I'm gonna go ahead and play that song because I still like the song.
Yeah, I mean the song still bangs, so why not? Or yeah. I didn't realize that you used the splice vocal because you changed it. Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But I just think there's so many ways to be more creative, and like splice is like a Cialis for producers. I don't know. Like I'm so down for taking a hat and a clap. And even sure a kick from splice. Let's do all that, but then like create the rest of the box. Let's use some VSTs. Let's use your own voice and make a melody. Like I know everyone's seen that in masterclass. Like you can just hop on a mic, say some bullshit, and create a little melody. So I don't know. I just think that we are in a time where shit's getting repetitive, and how can we make some weird shit?
And we have like the advantage of mountains and mountains of content, like everywhere, like pre-recorded content. Like I found so many great samples just off of like Twitter.
Yeah.
Just like scrolling through Twitter and like pulling for example, this is funny. I found one that was like a seal sound. Like make a sound like a weird seal sound. And I was like, that sounds like a tech house riser. I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. Like, we have the advantage of like millions of pieces of content to draw from, so let's use them.
100%. And if you're not capable of using them, it's just because you don't know how in-depth Ableton or your DAW can get. You can make a riser out of anything. You just throw it in an arpeggiator and let that shit go, automate the rate, or whatever. Simpler is another great one too. But I think that splice is so useful because it allows it's very efficient and it's quick, but that also somewhat indirectly promotes laziness. So like I find myself, even like if there's a good percussion loop in my hard drive or something, I might use that, but then it's like, fuck, I'm being lazy, and it's not as good as something I might just like, if I spend 30 minutes to make it manually, it could be something 10 times better, but I'm just being lazy. So a lot of the times I'll label it as like a placeholder loop, or like placeholder perk, and then I'll switch it up later. But I don't know. I think for the most part, everything's good as long as you're manipulating it and making it somewhat unique. But if you're just grabbing something, drag and dropping it on your doll, figure it out.
Yeah, right. I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. I want to rewind and talk about like how you fell in love with dance music, because I feel like it's a really great story, and I feel like it's one that people would resonate with. So like,
Yeah.
how did you first discover dance music, and like what specifically was it that made you like flip the switch, that made you say, I know you listened to like a lot of underground hip hop before that. Like what made you like
Yes.
become like this person that's just like, I love dance music so much? Because we all do.
So I was gonna go in the Marines, and I
Mm,
kept getting my pool date pushed back and pushed back after high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to get in debt from college just quite yet. And so I was like, how about I do the Marines? Even if I do the reserves, I can go through college that way or whatever. Maybe the Marines are for me, so I'll just stick with that.
right.
Um, so I was going through that process, but my pool kept getting pushed back because I would go to MEPS and I would, pee in that cup, and I kept getting an iron deficiency, on my whatever report that they gave us back.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't allowed to go out to boot camp quite yet. I had to supplement with iron pills and then figure it out. Well, like 4 months in, all the buddies that I was going to go to boot camp with, they had already gone through boot camp. So I was just like sitting here and really just frustrated. And then my friend told me about Moonrise, which is a festival in Maryland.
Right.
And, I was like, fuck it, let's go. And that's the first time you know, this is the first time I did a lot of things. It was the first time that I really got a chance to be immersed in that music scene
Yeah.
with, you know, there were some influences that made it that much more spiritual, but for the most part, I'm trying to find a way to say this,
Trying to find a way,
um,
a nice way to say that you dropped a pill.
there we go. Yeah. And maybe a lot of them. I just didn't want to be the one to say it.
It's
But
all
yeah, it
right.
was a very, very spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what really changed me. I saw Chani
Yeah.
just really work a crowd, and I saw Claude just like blow my mind. So that's when I was like, all right, fuck the Marines. I want to try this out. So I just like locked myself in my basement, and I just kept on producing until I made something I thought was good, and just started sending it to all my friends. And from there, it was a wrap. I was addicted. I was obsessed. So that's kind of how that started. Um, it started because I thought I had a path that I wanted to take, and then I was like, I don't know if I was listening to the signs, but there was something holding me back, and there's a reason that I couldn't go into the Marines.
Right.
Whether it be an iron deficiency or whatever. It was like some, God, whatever, had something else in plan for me, and it really took me the ability to like step out of my comfort zone and try something that I had no idea if it was going to work, instead of like taking the safe route, just taking 3 months more of these supplements and then going into the Marines and having
Right.
this backbone, the structure that I knew was secure. As long as I stayed in it, I was going to get paid, blah, 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 blah. I had a path. But then, I have an opportunity here because I'm young enough. I could try this music thing out, whatever that means.
Right.
And my parents had no clue. Like, there's everybody in where I'm from. They're just like, what is this? What are you trying to do? So yeah, it's definitely a risk, but something that I'm very glad that I did. And I think if you're a young producer or a young aspiring producer, definitely take all the chances you can get. You're
Yeah.
young, so you can afford the risk. And there's a lot of people that they wish they were young when they're in their like late 30s, 40s. That wish they would have done that. So I don't know. I think that's all played a part of why I'm here. I don't know.
Well, even like taking that risk, and this is something that I found every time I talk to somebody, is that's just part of the artist path.
Yeah.
It always is, because like anything that you do that's artistic or creative, there's always like relative uncertainty whether or not it's going to work out, but you just kind of have to like have the power of belief in yourself
Absolutely.
to move on. And that wasn't the first time that wasn't the last time that you took a risk. You moved across the country too.
It's also true. Yeah.
Like what inspired, why take that risk? What inspired that?
That was, it was a whirlwind of events that caused that. But there was like, my parents were moving out of the house. We had like a death of a friend in the family, and there's just like a lot of things that I was like, I got out of a relationship that I was in Maryland. So it's just like, I really felt like Maryland was holding me back.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to really do the music thing, I had to be in like the music mecca that is LA. So I was like, fuck it. Let's just really try it. Like, I had done everything that there is to do in DC. I played at U Street, I played at Flash, I played at Club, Glow, what is it called? Echo, not, well, I did play Echo Stage. But Soundcheck was the one that I played at a lot. And I don't know, I just felt like I'd maxed out DC and I was ready for something more. I felt like I was big fish in a small pond, and I was ready to be a small fish in a big pond. And so I was like, fuck it, let's just send it. And I went out to LA, and it's funny, right when it was me and my best friend packed up my Prius, drove across the country, fell asleep on my buddy's couch when we landed in San Diego. And when I woke up, I got an email from Dirty Bird accepting that song for Bird Feed that I sent him 3 weeks prior. So it's like definitely like a meant to be a moment. Yeah. At least for me, like yes, Dirty Bird might not be like the biggest release ever, but for me at that time, it was the biggest release that could have ever happened. That should change my life. So
well, yeah, that's a transformational moment for you, especially after like such a big move, and after like following Dirty Bird for so long. That's like you just paying attention to who or whatever it is that's sending you the signals.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've talked about like what's past, and I always like to ask what excites you about the future of dance music, because it's a nice time to like look forward to the future, especially after the year that we've had, or the year and a half that we've had. It's been 2 years almost.
And I really hope that we get our shit together so we can be fully back to normal. I feel like all the red states are pretty open, but there's still a lot of, I don't know, there's still a lot of politics going on. I feel like we're not going to get back to like the things were in 2019 until like another year, but who knows?
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
We'll see though. I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit hesitant to be excited or to let myself be excited, just because like the pandemic was rough. Like we didn't play at all, and that was the only source of income for a lot of us young artists.
Right.
Even for the big artists too, a lot of people had to cancel tours and paid money back to people that bought their tickets. And you're seeing a lot of the same stuff in all the entertainment fields with like comedians, with actors. I'd say it's a little bit early, being the skeptic that I am, for me to just like get too excited, but I'm definitely excited. Let's fast forward like even 5 years from now. I think that something really, really interesting to look forward to is the fact that Insomniac, I think, is going to be a big hitter as far as an event throwing company. They're already huge, but I think they're probably going to be the biggest. And I mean, they're buying out all these clubs on the East Coast too. So I'm expecting a lot more East Coast festivals, even festivals in the Midwest. Like, I'm just expecting a lot more events to be thrown, and good events, where the artists are getting paid, where there's a variety and, a greater demographic of races and genders on these lineups. And, as a society, I know we've gone through a rough time, especially in 2020 and, with the whole George Floyd thing. One thing I'm hopeful for is that I think as a society, I can only talk in terms of the US, but I think we're at least talking about these hard issues a lot more. I don't know if people are, more racist now or less racist now. Like, I don't know as far as racism goes where people are at, but I just know that we're having these conversations. We're having conversations about trans matters. We're having conversations about, ethnic matters, just everything, classes. We're talking about politics a lot more. There's kids from my generation talking about, these like education, healthcare, all this stuff that, is an issue. We have a lot of issues right now, even as we're talking about the entirety of the world. There's a lot of issues going on.
Yeah.
And the one good thing that social media and technology has been able to do for us is that we can talk about these things. And once again, I'm just going to circle back. Like, I think we're having tough conversations as a whole, and I think that's very important, and that makes me excited for where the future is going. It makes me hopeful that we actually care about other people's feelings in order to be having these conversations. And I think I'll stop it at that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important point to make, because especially in dance music culture, we've prided ourselves for the last 30 years on being like inclusive and accepting, and we come from a background that's very much rooted in Black and brown and LGBTQ culture.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe at some point over the last 30 years it started to drift away from that, and the fact that we're so much more open now, it's nice to be able to say like, hey, we can get back to that now, because everybody is able to have these conversations much more publicly, because those conversations were happening in the dark when this first started.
Yes. Yeah, this was all stemming from Chicago and, Chicago house parties, in shitty ass warehouses at 4 a.m. with, gays meeting up because they had nowhere else to go. They threw the best parties in town, so everybody started coming to them. The same thing happened in Detroit with techno. So it's like, this is coming from a Black, LGBTQ culture, and I think that people need to know that and also not forget. And I just love the fact that I'm seeing a bunch of BIPOCs playing and on lineups, and even more trans artists getting opportunities. I
love to see that too.
I think that's huge. A huge step. Yeah. So I don't know. I that makes me excited.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And I love the tangent that you went on. It's totally okay, but I also love that you brought it back around, and you just like, you kind of brought it home. Like, and I think that's an important thing to state. Yeah,
and I don't want people to, take what I said and spin it like about a Donald Trump thing. Like, I don't give a fuck about Donald Trump. I think he's a pretty horrible president. Was entertaining, horrible president.
Right.
And my only question is, I just hope that they don't. It's never been good in our history to shut people's voices down.
The end result's never good.
The end result's never good, and I don't think we would be in a position today, us both being colored men, without being able to say the things that we need to say in order to fight back. So it's like, that's the only, and it is a very extreme case. He is a once in a lifetime president that was doing these crazy things. So I also get the Twitter side. That's the only thing that worries me on that accord. But I think that's where my head's at, and I am for the most part excited, and I really do see this world opening back up. I'd say in like a year we'll be back fully. All the festivals will be back, and a lot more festivals too.
Even more venue. There's been a lot of venues that shut down, sadly. Yes. But the fact that like Insomniac has like bought up a bunch of venues on the East Coast, but also that they bought a warehouse in Oakland.
Wow, let's go.
Yeah, of all places. Like, I mean, Oakland used to have like the sickest raves back in the day. So the fact that Insomniac has like bought a warehouse in Oakland says a lot. It's like, oh, we're gonna have like Factory 93 in Oakland. That's awesome.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that. I love that even though we've gone through a hellish year, like in the next 2 years, dance music is going to be like big, but still underground. But still like flourishing and thriving.
Yes, yes. I would like it to drive through every state and have there be a radio channel playing like house music or some
I've
type of
been
electronic music.
been waiting for that for years. I've always been jealous of I've always been jealous of Radio One.
Yes,
Like
yes,
being
yes,
able to like turn on the radio and hear the essential mix. Like
yes.
I've
That's
never
just
experienced that in my lifetime. I want that to happen here.
insomnia. Get on it. And also, we need a U.S. Carnival.
Yes.
I know the
Oh,
weather's not that great, but I'm sure that everybody would be down just for a week. Everybody, drop what you're doing. Party.
yeah. Let's do that. Let's make that happen.
Let's make it
It's gotta
happen.
happen. Let's make it
All right.
happen.
I guess we gotta become president. How are we gonna do this?
We're working on it, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're getting there. This
We're gonna
conversation is the beginning.
we're gonna go back to back in office.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me today.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. And we're really excited. We're really excited to have you and just excited about your music and
Appreciate you.
excited to hear what you have to say.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad somebody is willing to listen to the bullshit I have to say because not many people want to, but I appreciate it, man. I really do.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that would love to that would love to hear your voice, man. And
my voice is one of the things I hate the most. So I'm glad someone says that.
oh, I don't listen to my own stuff after I'm done. I'm not gonna. I don't want to hear myself talk.
Well, you sound delicious. I sound disgusting. So don't worry.
Well, I'm gonna flip that and reverse it and throw it back on you.
That's love, man. I appreciate you.
No doubt. Well, we'll be talking soon. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, absolutely. Right. Thank you guys so much.
No doubt. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you. Peace.
Bye.